We have the first reaction coming in from India. India has rejected allegations by Canada and calling the accusations absurd and motivated. That's the big breaking news that we are getting on our screens right now. India has said, and I quote the statement here, has strong commitment to rule of law. It's a bid to shift focus from Khalistanis. Charges are being rejected and have already been rejected at the Trudeau-Modi meeting. Remember, there was a pull-aside meeting. There was no bilateral meeting at the G20 between India and Canada, but there was a pull-aside meeting in which the Canadian concerns, Khalistani concerns on Canadian soil were expressed by India. Charges made by Canada were immediately rejected at that meeting, and now India has said these are absurd accusations. These are motivated. I want to go across to back to our guests again on this, and I want to take this to Shrinder Porwal, who's also a professor at the University in Vancouver. There are so many students, so many citizens from India, or those who have taken up Canadian citizenship from Indian origin, continue to live there. This was supposed to be a friendly nation. We expected Canada to take any action against any sort of anti-India activities, but this is just looking complete opposite of that. And do you think this is political pressure? This is coalition pressure, this is vote bank pressure on Canadian Prime Minister, that rather than take action against those activities, they're accusing India of it. And could this impact the sort of lives that Indian students are living in Canada?
Well, it certainly does it to the Indian community, Indian international students. We rely on Indian missions for Consular General, High Commission, for consular services, for visas, passports, and all those things. They provide us with those services. So any breakdown in diplomatic relations is actually going to hurt us, the Indian community here. It's not hurting them. And, secondly, you look at US and Canada, there's a tale of two different countries. US is now the closest ally of India, India, and Canada is starting a new Cold War.
That's a very important point you made, that USA perhaps is realizing where it needs to stand on the global order, and only Trudeau knows why and what would lead him to make that statement. Diplomat Deepak Vora, India has reacted, rubbished all these allegations. Are you expecting any counter-reaction or counteraction that India could take? Because there were supposed to be two mature nations. Even if there were concerns, Canada, like India had expressed to Canada, Canada could have expressed to India rather than take these immediate steps. Do you think, Diplomat Vora, that for the snubbing that Justin Trudeau got at the G20 summit, how else would he react on his soil rather than this?
Oh, there's an expression in Hindi, ulta chor kotwal ko dante. This is what we are seeing. But this guy was told, with evidence, ma'am, we don't do things when we talk to the Prime Minister level, we have evidence. We said, buddy, this you are up to. And if some Khalistani terrorist, deemed terrorist, designated terrorist, has been eliminated, well, he has. But you should do much more to curtail their activities. Now, these guys were terrified of the reaction when this fellow was eliminated. There was a lot of hoo-ha-ha in Canada. Look, the government wasn't able to protect this fellow. I say, I didn't know it's your job to protect terrorists. They got very upset that India's strong arms can reach out. I'm not saying that we were involved, but this was the general perception at that time, that India may have been involved. Ma'am, just out, sorry, his name is Justin or just out? All right, just out. This fellow, he looks constipated first all the time. I'm being very blunt with you, even though it's somewhat undiplomatic. Second, I believe his wife has just walked out on him. So he's basically a very unhappy man. And then when India says, look, if you don't behave as far as the Khalistanis are concerned, we will then have to do what we have to do. And then he decides to go on the offensive. This is not done in 2023 amongst nations of the stature of India and Canada. Canada has a $1.5 trillion economy. I'm 4 trillion, heading to 5 trillion. I have a large market. He has nothing that he can offer me apart from the Indian community that goes there, our students. And if our students don't go there to study, many of the universities will shut down. Let me just say one thing, ma'am, with my experience in the United States. You know, in 1984, I was posted there when Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated, Operation Blue Star, and the Americans said that there were Khalistanis protesting outside our embassy. The Americans said, look, guys, this is your problem, sort it out. Then comes 1998. We were treated as some kind of riffraff. 1998, we carry out a nuclear test despite technology denial by the Americans. I was there, and the Americans turned out and said, listen, guys, I don't think we can mess around with you because you've done it. We've delayed it by 10 years, but you've achieved it. Then the relationship came on the upswing when the respect for India came. Canada still has to get that respect. Don't send your trade delegation. Happy birthday. I don't want them. Nobody wants. I go to Africa, I'm special advisor in 3 countries. They don't care about Canada. And I say, look, as Canadians say, the Canadian who's the prime minister, never heard of the character. So I think these guys as a large country should come to terms that they do not carry any clout.
And we hope that the Canadian citizens are watching what their Prime Minister is up to. Rather than take action against extremist elements, they're actually blaming India, taking action against Indian diplomats. Diplomat Anil Triguniyad, what do you think happens here on between 2 countries while the global order is also changing? We've seen Brampton parades. We have seen the manner in which Canadian soil has allowed a referendum. When G20 was happening here, there was this bizarre referendum by Khalistanis taking place. They are definitely getting a boost by these actions. They call it foreign interference by India. Now, clearly, India has expressed concerns. Canada has faced Kanishka bombing by themselves. Their own citizens also suffered. And amid all of this, this new Prime Minister, young Prime Minister, says India is to be blamed and I'll sack their diplomat. What happens here on between 2 nations? How do you think that India could possibly proceed?
Well, frankly, Pooja, I believe that he has lost it, frankly. For whatever reasons, the kind of actions he's taking, despite he's not able to, probably he's too much, in my view, driven by his domestic compulsions. That may be one of the reasons that he has behaved the way he is. In any case, the bilateral relations have seen, they have been at their lowest at the moment, and we have seen the way he has behaved, and Prime Minister has very clearly conveyed to him that what we expect. And therefore, now, as per diplomacy, is reciprocity. So if they are going to expel an Indian diplomat, obviously there will be repercussions from in India. And I would personally feel that now it is the time that we need to scale down our relationship with Canada. Because we are getting nothing out of it except getting hurt. I mean, that means that they are allowing and enabling these Sikh extremists to operate against India. And we have seen that in India also the Khalistani movement, which is an exported element and has thrived in the last, once again. And so therefore we need to be careful about
Diplomat
it.
Triguniyad, I must tell you that Diplomat Vora was literally applauding when you said that we need to scale down on the trade ties. It appears that your voice may be echoed in different diplomatic quarters as well. I request you gentlemen to please stay on. I want to bring in our Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan on this. Geeta, India has reacted. Do tell us about India's statement and what happens here on.
Well, that's the news that's coming in. India has rejected the allegations, calling them allegations absurd and motivated, also likening it to the kind of instances and incidents that are taking place well within Canada. The Indian administration has said that that political figures have openly expressed sympathy for such elements, and that certainly remains a concern, but also has said that space of Canada has been used for a range of illegal activities, including murders, human trafficking, and organized crime, which is really not new. Rejecting attempts to connect government of India to any such developments, the Indian government has urged the Canadian administration to take prompt and effective legal action against all anti-India elements. So they're going back to the conversation that this is a major concern for India, the Khalistanis living in Canada. Having said that, they've also rejected allegations of involvement in the killing of Harjit Singh Nijjar.